Hello and welcome to the Aid Station. It's an absolute pleasure today to be joined by Charlotte Melchert, who's joining us as the CEO of World Marathons, all the way from Stockholm in Sweden. Welcome, Charlotte. Great to have you on the Aid Station.
Thank you so much, Chris, for inviting me to this really great initiative.
Yeah, wonderful to have you here. And I'd love to start by just giving you the opportunity to tell us a little bit about you. I know we were going to have this yesterday, but you've got a little teething little 5-year-old that's giving you some challenges at the moment. But I'd love to hear a little bit of your personal story and a little bit about World Marathons as well, if you could, please.
Yeah, of course. So, yeah, as said, I'm a mother of 2 and have a little baby at home. So quite a lot of work on that side. I used to be a consultant for about 10 years, working for a big global firm. And work with digitalization. And then for a while I was appointed branding manager for the Nordics, and had a love for mass participation events since I was a little girl. And when I had the opportunity to run the branding, I wanted to really do something good for our brand and for our employees. So we started to sponsor Stockholm Marathon. And that was more or less my way into the industry. And realized pretty quickly that it was tricky for the race to reach out to primarily international runners. So that was the starting point of World Marathons. So we started off the company as a directory, and then we added the possibility to buy race entries in 2017. So now the company has been up and running for 3 years and have 18 team members.
Fantastic, it's wonderful. We had your team at Mass Participation World in Singapore and been interacting with Marlon, and it's great to see. And it's interesting, more and more in the industry, I come across people who know you, and say you're relatively new, so you're obviously making an impact. And I'd love to hear, a little bit about what's life for you like at the moment, because if I understand it correctly, Sweden is one of the few countries where you haven't gone into the kind of fairly onerous lockdowns that are happening in other parts of the world. Am I correct that that's the case?
Yeah, they have chosen a strategy that you can be in voluntary quarantine, so you limit social interactions, but the schools are open and you're free to visit stores and even restaurants. We'll see if that's successful or not, maybe in the coming years, but for us it's pretty nice actually, because you can be outdoors and do exercises and be with the family in parks. So it's really good when you have kids.
Yes, wonderful. Yeah, we're quite lucky. I live in Bali, as you know, and here the lockdown is relatively limited as well. So we're able to go out every day and go and do things, and we're incredibly lucky. It's wonderful, but obviously time will tell which is the best strategy. What does that mean for your team? So you've got a relatively small team. So do you still go into the office as a team and interact, or are you now remote working? And how's that impacted you from a day-to-day basis from a business?
Yeah, actually the change is not that big, because we have been remote from the beginning. So we are 18 team members and 12 nationalities. So we're super spread out in the world from the beginning. So we have worked in Slack and using all these digital tools from the start, and worked a lot from home or tiny work offices around the world. And that has worked really well, I would say, in the past. So we have an office in Stockholm, but now we are not visiting that one that frequently. But I would say that our interaction with the team is maybe even more intense.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, and I mean, again, I ask this question mostly of the people that have been in lockdown, but have you found you've learned something about yourself during this period of time, some kind of introspection in terms of, this global COVID, and has that brought anything to the fore about something you've learned about yourself?
Yeah, I think as an entrepreneur, you're quite caught up in your business, and these challenging times have made me realize the importance of family and friends, and how easily someone can be affected by the disease, and so important to talk with each other and have good conversations. And so yeah, I think that's something that at least I try to change in my behavior, to connect more with people close to me and not be only into the business and to the babies, but also the family.
The family, yeah. It's interesting. I've had a number of conversations recently, people saying, well, I'm loving this time because it's giving me so much extra time to read and listen to podcasts and whatever. We were talking a little bit before we came on air. It's kind of almost the opposite for me. We're not in complete lockdown, but I've got a 5-year-old who wants to knock on the study door every half hour and come in and pushing things under my door. And I've had a few of those conversations. I was communicating with a friend of mine who heads up a big regional IT company. And he was saying, like, he's just in this mode at the moment where he feels overwhelmed at the end of every day, because I guess one of the things that some people are maybe struggling to practice now is that kind of distancing that you are on. We were always online before this happened, but maybe even more now when you're kind of like locked up. So I think we're probably lucky that we have this ability to get out and about a little bit more so than those that are completely locked up.
Yeah, because of course it creates a lot of tension to be locked in with. And when I speak with some friends who have a really close lockdown, the tensions are intensifying at home.
And I'm guessing that with your team spread out over, I think you said 12 different countries, you've got people in all the spectrum of it, haven't you? You've got yourself that's got a bit of freedom, and I'm guessing you must have some people that are totally locked down. And how does that work? I was going to move on to what's your biggest challenges at the moment during this period of time? I'm guessing you've already said that some people would find managing a remote team like that a challenge now with that transition, but for you, it's probably something you're comfortable with. But what are some of the challenges that you're facing in the business and in a personal perspective?
So our business has been growing really well, but our niche is to bring international runners to races and really open up the world for racing. And at this point, international travel is more or less banned. So we are struggling a lot with sales and to help the clients who really suffer. Many races, as you know, they have invested a lot in their events, which are now cancelled or postponed. So we try to help our clients as much as we can, and at the same time we are also a very small business. The biggest fear for us is sales, of course, and building that trust among the participants to actually buy a ticket maybe for 2021 or late 2020 to get that optimism back. I think in the business is a challenge for us and our clients.
Yeah, I think it's a really interesting one. One of the things I'm also doing is I run a thing called Strength in Numbers. So every Monday I do a morning call and an afternoon call, and we're getting people from all over the world tuning in. And one of the people that tunes in quite regularly is from Auckland Tourism in New Zealand. And he was kind of saying, we've kind of made the realization that the opening of this, and we don't even know the time frame as everyone around the world feels, is that we're going to have to build kind of from just outside Auckland to start bringing people in, and then maybe it's going to be national from people all over New Zealand, and it might be a year before the international stuff starts to come back in terms of people feeling comfortable and so on. So in terms of you, do you feel that there's kind of going to be a need for you to pivot a little bit around that? If it takes a year for people to start traveling, in line with that challenge, are you looking at focusing more on kind of regional initiatives, or how might you counter that?
Yeah, shifting to regional is not that easy since we are truly global. So what we have done is to shift a little bit more towards virtual racing, and we launched our own initiative with a 5K run on 5th of May, so a 555 run in support of Doctors Without Borders. And that's the way I think both to unite people around the globe. So the tagline is to keep the distance but run united. And we're trying to create that feeling of unity in the world with the distance, and maybe also inspire organizers to set up their own virtual events. Then, of course, looking some years ahead. I don't think virtual ones will be the main source of income. It will still be the key events, but it could be a nice complement. So we are focusing on that side.
Yeah, great. Look, and we, one of the things that came up actually on this week's call is that kind of combination of that, someone call it mixed virtual, that whole, the on-ground and the virtual experience. So those that build it well now will be able to use it as an engagement platform going forward. And I guess that leads me into the next question around innovation. I mean, clearly you're a very innovative company. You've done some amazing things already. Has there been anything that you've seen, whether it be within the mass participation industry or generally as an innovation that's, there's so many innovations being born out of this, but is there something that's particularly jumped to your mind that you find fascinating?
I think I've seen some organizers who started to use credits on a wider scale, so trying to build some confidence into returning to an event. So even though it's postponed for 2020, you're giving the runner an option to select maybe from a variety of events in the coming years. So I think that's a quite nice way to give some sort of refund without a complete refund. That would really put a lot of financial pressure on the organizers, and it's also a way to build some confidence with the participants.
Yeah, that sounds like a great idea. And based on the fact that you're not completely locked down, I'm assuming that all events in Sweden have stopped anyway, though, or are there still some events that are happening on a more social distancing basis?
No, you're not allowed to have any gatherings with more than 50 people. So that puts a stop to almost all events, unfortunately.
Yeah.
So I don't think we will see any bigger events until maybe late autumn in Sweden and rest of Europe. And how the events will look like, let's see if there will be some distancing among participants, or how the business will develop, but probably something will change. That's for sure.
I think in fact I'm running a webinar next week, next Friday, with Mike Nishi from Chicago and Hugh Singh, who's the medical director of the Singapore Marathon. We're talking about the new normal, because it's kind of like, what is the new normal going to be? What requirements are there going to be from governments and so on? And I think there's an opportunity for the industry to start thinking about it now. So very interesting.
What is a really nice thing, and what we have seen a lot, especially on social media, is that people are actually craving to run and exercise, because being locked in your home, it's you start to miss that being outside or just exercising. So I think if we look at the industry in maybe 1 or 2 years' time, it might be a positive thing for mass participation events and exercising in general. But we have to be able to keep ourselves floating for the coming month.
Certainly the numbers seem to, and all the statistics of bike sales and shoe sales and everything seem I'd love to end with something inspiring, which I do on each of the 8 stations, is something that's inspired you, or someone that inspires you, or a great story that you'd like to share with the people that are watching, please.
Well, I think I wanted to take the opportunity to say that this could be maybe an opportunity to change life path. So as I said, I used to work as a consultant for many years, and then I changed to become an entrepreneur. And it was a big shift, a lot of pressure, but also so much fun. And I think this time could also be a time where you do some reflection and maybe start a new education, or think about the company you might want to start, or just change profession. So utilizing a bit of calmness to maybe do something different in your life.
That's a wonderful perspective. I have a thing which I call the power of pause, which I try and use in multiple schemes. But I think that this is one of the most amazing pauses that humanity's ever had the opportunity to have. And I see so many people like you that might be in that on that corporate treadmill, so to speak, and might say, here's an opportunity to step off and do something different that's much more purpose-driven and closer to their why. I think it's wonderful insight and very inspiring. Thank you. Charlotte, it's been a great pleasure to have you, and congratulations again on what you and your World's Marathon team are doing, and all the very best with your continued innovation. And we'll look forward to hopefully meeting in person one day and continuing to see the growth of the company. So much. Thank you for making time. Bye-bye.